fully open the Strait of Hormuz, agree to a deal. That was the ultimatum from U.S. President Donald Trump Monday morning.
We're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And after that, they're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah. Stone Ages.
Or else, he said, face attacks on bridges and power plants.
Writing, as he does on social media, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. A whole civilization will die.
And here we are on Wednesday morning. That 8 p.m. deadline has come and gone. And guys, I'm going to quote my favorite Shakespeare play, Much Ado About Nothing. Both sides are claiming victory after this ceasefire deal was reached. Let's take a brief listen to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and how he decided to characterize things this morning.
No other president has shown the courage and resolve of this commander-in-chief. President Trump forged this moment. Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President truth this morning, a big day for world peace.
That is how the Americans are framing things. Now, we were all watching to see what was going to happen Tuesday night as that deadline approached, and that's why we're recording this conversation Wednesday morning. This episode is dropping a little later than usual. We wanted to see what was going to come out of the deadline to make sure that we can make sense of it all in our conversation now. And so today we are asking, what was that all for anyway? I'm Katie Simpson.
I'm Willy Lowry.
And I'm Paul Hunter. We are your CBC correspondents at the CBC's Washington Bureau, which sits conveniently 2 blocks from the White House.
Paul, let's start by taking a minute to catch people up on where we are in this moment. Can you walk us through the lead up to that deadline that Donald Trump had announced?
I brought a cheat sheet.
Oh, excellent.
Look, it says cheat sheet right on it. So I'm going to read from it. Nine easy points. 39 days ago, Trump and Israel attack Iran. The objectives were a moving target. No nukes, regime change. Then, Iran doesn't fall. There's a new supreme leader who's a younger version of the old supreme leader. People don't rise up. The Strait of Hormuz effectively closes. Prices up everywhere. World freaks out. U.S. jet shot down. Trump starts swearing, threatens war crimes. His message, give up, or again, a whole civilization will die. 39 days. That's what we've been through the last 6 weeks. That's where we were as of last evening.
And as that deadline, this is a self-imposed deadline.
8 p.m. Eastern last night.
From Donald Trump. As that inched closer, Willy, we were all keeping our eye on Truth Social, Donald Trump's social media platform, because that's where a lot of the updates have been coming from. And as that deadline inched closer, we finally did get an update.
Yeah, of course it was on social media, right? I mean, where else would it be? But I think Paul summed it up. Is there anything else left to talk about?
I don't know. Did I miss anything?
Honestly, the announcement of a deal that gets us to the deal.
But was it a deal? So I mean, let's
talk about it.
Let's parse through a little bit that message that he posted to social media last night at, I think, around
90 minutes before the 8 o'clock deadline.
As we know from previous podcasts, my math isn't great, but I think that brings us to about 6:30. And I'm going to read some of it, but not all of it, because, well, it's quite long-winded. Based on conversations with Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. 2 things to point out. First of all, that brings us back to where we were on February 28th before the U.S. and Israel launched this war against Iran, which was an open Strait of Hormuz. Second point, what's a double-sided ceasefire? A ceasefire suggests both sides are going to cease hostilities.
Willy, where do we know about where things stand right now as we head into this 2-week period where negotiations are going to take place?
Yeah, so we know that Pakistan has invited both sides to Islamabad on Friday, April 10th, hoping to kind of convene there to work through some of the points. I'm going to take a bit of a step back. Several weeks ago, the U.S. put forward this 15-point proposal. Iran rebutted that with a 5-point proposal. And then sometime in the last day or days, Iran put forward this 10-point peace proposal that on social media Trump said was essentially a workable basis. But I've taken a look at those 10 points that Iran has put forward. Almost all of them seem to be counter to what the U.S. wants to see, including that Iran would essentially control the Strait of Hormuz, that
an end to all sanctions?
An end to all sanctions, primary and secondary, that the U.S. withdraws from the region, militarily speaking. That's not going to happen. And that they maintain the ability to continue to enrich uranium. All of these things seemingly are non-starters. So I'm not sure what Washington saw out of Iran, at least from what we're hearing publicly, that allowed them to save face, other than perhaps that they would allow ships to start passing through the Strait of Hormuz.
And framing that as a basis for negotiations.
Exactly. But again,
what
that brings us back to what was already in existence on February 28th or 27th.
And if we go back even further, Donald Trump this morning is posting on social media that they're looking at or they're talking about removing sanctions on Iran. So if this is heading toward talks where Iran gets sanction relief, where there's some sort of agreement there about Iran's nuclear capabilities, if Iran does agree to something, about restricting what it's going to do, what does that take us back to? Shall we get in the time machine and go back to 2015 when Barack Obama negotiated an agreement with Iran, the same agreement that Donald Trump removed the United States from back in 2018, I believe it was? It seems to be, is that where this is headed, a new Iran nuclear deal, after Donald Trump trashed the last one that was in existence? Is that what this is headed toward? There are so many sort of what it seems to be is like contradictory messages or sort of, facts in this moment that don't seem to square.
Let me put a question to you, Katie, and I'm going to frame this carefully so that you can answer it. This is the taco question.
Oh, yeah.
Will this be framed by Trump critics, by people, as Trump chickening out? Taco. Trump always chickens out. Is that going to be the headline for a lot of people here?
Well, when the stakes are this high, when Donald Trump's threat, the thing he chickened out from, was wiping out an entire civilization, I think there is a sense of relief that, well, thank God he did. So I was having a conversation with the editorial team at The National last night, which is a normal part of the process when we file.
Of course.
And we were talking about, how do we frame this story? And everything was late breaking and moving quickly. And my initial sort of instinct was to frame it as taco. Trump always chickens out, because colloquially, my phone sort of exploded with, people from Canada, friends that don't work in news, and that's how they sort of described it. People flippant, sort of calling it Taco Tuesday. But when I talked it through, it sort of sounded flippant when the stakes are so high. And so so in the end, we had a discussion, and we ultimately decided that that doesn't feel right, but it certainly is part of the conversation that people are having.
In a weird kind of way, I think that almost reflects how so much of this has been normalized. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't think of it as these incredibly high stakes because it's just another Tuesday. It's just another day in the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm. I would add that I think you made the right calculus. And we have to also remember that putting aside the incredibly real ramifications of Trump's potential decisions and actions, he knows about taco. Mm-hmm. And he needs to be given the space to be able to back down or walk back from some of these decisions that are of such immense impact without being accused of taco.
There needs to be off-ramps. Off-ramps are normal in conflict. Off-ramps are normal in politics. And when Donald Trump sort of has this sort of stigma around him, taco, he always chickens out, it can in some ways be harder to justify an off-ramp in some ways.
Yeah. I would argue it's not just a pattern of decision-making. It's his MO through his whole, I won't say his whole life, but certainly his whole life in the business world. The difference before was that it was about real estate deals. Now it's an entire civilization in the potential crosshairs. He has always believed that you threaten with everything that you have so that you can get the most back. And we can talk about whether this deal and wherever this ends up is something that the U.S. has got in return for that threat. But that's what he always does. The difference now is, one of the things we were talking, I had in my radio script yesterday was put to the spokesman at the UN, like, is he going to use a nuclear weapon? Right? This is the difference he has now. He can threaten the annihilation of a civilization, and he has the ability to carry that out with the figurative press of a button.
I was going to say, in business, he could use the figurative nuclear option to blow up a deal, but of course, when you're dealing with politics, he literally does have the nuclear option, which is obviously
think about that.
Carries with it
think about the conversation
implications
that we're having right now.
Yeah.
I mean, another question that was put to the UN yesterday was, has Trump lost his mind?
That was a question that so stood out to me, and the UN spokesman.
He just said, I'm not going to answer that.
Yeah.
Right?
Does the Secretary General think that President Donald Trump is out of his mind?
I'm not going to answer that question. I think what we all need is a return to sober dialogue, sober analysis, and sober action.
But the fact that it was put out there.
Yeah.
And then there's the theory that this was a madman theory, that, he was using that maximalist approach to try and get what he wanted.
Yes, absolutely. That's his thing.
Willy, you sort of talked about the what is different now versus what the state of play was before the first Israeli and American strikes on Iran. One thing that has changed, or we've seen some change around, is the Strait of Hormuz. And Paul, who out of this, as of this moment we're having this conversation, do we have a better understanding of who's actually in control of the Strait of Hormuz?
Well.
Well,
over to you, Willy.
Let me just check my notes.
But isn't that the point?
That's the point, right? That's the point,
that
right?
Even that question can be raised.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's ask that in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Iran's view is that it's gonna, if not having it's not gonna have a toll booth. I think they were going down that path a little bit, but that it will be the Iranian military that will have ultimate say over things. Yeah. The U.S. is going to say what it'll be in partnership. Now Trump is already talking about partnering with Iran
on tolls.
There's a post from Jonathan Karl, who is an ABC News reporter. He covers the White House. He's a very credible reporter, very good at his job.
Great stuff.
And he called President Donald Trump. Everyone in Washington has Donald Trump's cell phone number, and all these reporters just call him up, and he talks to them. And he says that he had a conversation with Donald Trump shortly after sort of some of the details about what the U.S. is trying to negotiate come out. And he said that they were looking at, he'd asked Trump whether he was comfortable with Iran charging tolls on the Strait of Hormuz, because how would Iran, sort of generate revenue to rebuild its weapons systems or possibly rebuild, its nuclear development capabilities? It could be massive tolls on all of these ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. And Donald Trump floated the idea of partnering with Iran to go forward in a joint venture.
I just need to point out that when I was in Paris with Secretary of State Marco Rubio last week, this was a major part of the message that he was bringing to his G7 allies, that they cannot allow Iran to put tolls or to charge a fee for these ships. And yet now all of a sudden, it's not just Iran, but the U.S. would be in on that. So it's hard to comprehend. It
puts us in this moment where there are so many of these different things that Donald Trump and the Trump administration, they're putting forward as they describe as facts that just seem so contradictory. So Donald Trump threatens to wipe out this civilization, talks about how dangerous Iran is and how they were ready to sort of go in and they were weeks away from having a nuclear weapon, weeks away from launching attacks, whatever Donald Trump has said to justify this. And now, even though, there has been a significant loss to Iran's leadership, they have, killed a number of these senior leaders. There are new leaders in there. But it's still the same regime. Donald Trump is saying that it's still dangerous for people to go out there and protest in the street, warning that these people will get shot. At the same time, the U.S. is now looking to partner with them. He describes them as less radical. But are they less radical? Can people go out and protest? Like, what is sort of the situation here? And it speaks to the Trump administration sort of framing things in a way that is just most convenient for them.
Including that this was victory.
Yeah.
Right? And so, we've been saying for a while now, what's the way out here? Well, what's the face-saving way that the White House, that Trump can spin to find an exit ramp? And the answer is, I think, by simply saying it is so, and saying it is so again and again and again. And you talk about patterns of behavior, Katie. Mm-hmm. That has been the pattern of behavior of the Trump administration in both terms.
Yeah.
First, 1.0 and 2.0. Just keep saying it again and again. And eventually that becomes, it's the old cliche that the more you say it, it becomes the truth, at least in the minds of many, if not enough.
Look at election fraud. Look at January 6th. It all is in the same pattern.
I would say that these two things can be true, that the U.S. overwhelmingly, militarily speaking, won this war.
Agreed.
And yet, Iran, from an economic perspective, from its ability to inflict economic pain, not just on the region, but the world through the Strait of Hormuz, also won.
Mm-hmm. Trump's threats were met with condemnation from the United Nations. The Pope said, hey, remember, if you go after civilian infrastructure, that's against international law. The American-born Pope sort of rebuking, the threats from the Americans. And then we're seeing this wing of influential right-wing online personalities, people like Alex Jones.
Tucker Carlson, who
Candace
at the Republican
Owens.
convention that we were at, basically called Trump God's chosen one. So he was responding to Trump's tweet on Sunday. I'll quote some of Trump's tweet. "Open the effing strait." He didn't say effing. "You crazy bastards." And then Trump said, and this is on Easter weekend, "Praise be to Allah." But here's Tucker Carlson.
This is a mockery not just of Islam, it's a mockery of Christianity. To send out a tweet with the F word on Easter morning promising the murder of civilians and then saying praise be to Allah without explaining any of it, you are mocking me and every other Christian because we're Christians. Oh, I get it. We can't support that.
How is this playing in MAGA land?
So this is now leading to heated debates in that right-wing influencer media ecosystem about ways to remove Donald Trump from office. Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist I've mentioned before, who, again, he was known for spreading lies about what happened when a gunman killed a bunch of young children in a school in Sandy Hook. He has been a very loud activist for the MAGA movement, for Donald Trump. On his most recent podcast, he was asking a guest, how do we, quote, 25th Amendment his, and then he said a word that I don't think I can say, I might be able to say it, but basically saying, how do we 25th Amendment him, which means find a way to it's a constitutional way to remove the president if he's incapacitated from office.
Exactly, or unfit, I think,
is
unfit. Also part of it. He's to be declared unfit. This talk first came up in Trump 1.0 again, right? There was talk about that. Easier said. I mean, first of all, and the point you're making is that the fact that people are talking about that. In truth, it's a complicated. Yeah. Like if people go home tonight thinking, oh, maybe that's going to happen. It's hard, right? You've got to have a majority of cabinet and the vice president agree, and then if the president says no, I am fit, they have, I think, 48 hours to decide again, and if a majority of cabinet, and by the way, the cabinet is all the people selected by Trump, and we know that they are quite
Trump loyalists.
Trumpy.
Yeah.
And again, the vice president. And then if the president again says, no, I am fit, it then goes to Congress, where you need 2/3 of Congress to sign off on this. So it's one thing to say, and it's very significant that it is being said, but it's a complicated thing to achieve, in fairness.
And we've spoken about it off the podcast, Katie, but Carlson's kind of point about the religiosity of it, it's interesting. Hegseth has repeatedly invoked God over the course of this military campaign in a way that's made a lot of Americans, quite frankly, uncomfortable.
Uneasy.
Yeah, it speaks to the way that religion plays a factor into, the how important religion is to the people who are making these decisions. And, Pete Hegseth, during the news conference where they talked about the rescue of the 2 American service members who were in that plane that Iran shot down, when he talked about the rescue operation, which happened over Easter weekend, he compared it, or sort of seemed to point to parallels to the story of the resurrection of Jesus
Christ.
Flown out of Iran as the sun was rising on Easter Sunday. A pilot reborn, all home and accounted for, a nation rejoicing. God is good.
America is supposed to be this place where, church and state, there's a separation of church and state and all of that kind of thing. But this is a reminder that the influence of faith, the influence of religion is something that is a significant factor when it comes to these decision makers.
I think the bottom line in all of this bit of the conversation is that there are countless Americans now, including many who voted Republican last time around, who would say that Donald Trump is demonstrably unfit for office. But there's not much they can do about it.
And to that point, there is a lot of criticism right now in left-wing online circles about what have the Democrats done to try to stop Donald Trump. What are they? Some of the criticism has been, okay, here comes another strongly worded statement from Chuck Schumer, calling for a vote on the war. And does that actually? What has anyone done to stop Donald Trump from any of this? And I think one of the main takeaways from this entire war, from this conflict at this point in time, is that it illustrates that if Donald Trump wants to do something, there are very few sort of checks and balances to his power, because what has been done to stop him from this? Donald Trump is supposed to get permission from Congress before going to war. He keeps trying to use different language and not call it a war, but Donald Trump pushed ahead with this military operation, with this war, and nobody can stop him. And I think it illustrates just how much that the checks and balances on presidential power before Donald Trump, it was really part of an agreement. And that presidents had agreed in some ways to abide by these norms and regulations. And when someone doesn't want to do it, there isn't really much to stop him.
The co-equal branches of government, but this entire second term seemingly has been an exercise in Trump's ability to govern without the input of the legislative branch. Mm-hmm. And thus far, he's done it pretty effectively on that front.
Or even on the matter of the potential for war crimes. If he had wiped out an entire civilization by whatever means he was planning, expecting, positing that he would use. That left the U.S. armed forces in a position of, do we follow the commander-in-chief and commit war crimes, potentially, that we know to be or believe to be war crimes, or do we deny that and risk being jailed?
It's also put America's traditional allies in a pretty tough spot as well, right? This kind of rhetoric is seemingly intolerable from a Canadian and European perspective, but what are we seeing from their responses?
Oh, silence, effectively, because they have come to learn in the what are we now, 14 months into this term, that if you poke the bear, it's going to bite, or you risk a bite, or you risk tariffs doubling, or you risk more rhetoric about seizing Greenland or Canada, and it's like, so it's almost like they collectively want to just hope it doesn't happen, because if you say this is crazy, what are you doing? The risk is, I think it's fair to say world leaders believe, the risk is he'll up it even more. But this is the world we're in now with the United States, where everybody is afraid to offend or push back. And so to your question, Willy, again, effectively speaking, at best, muted criticism.
It's kind of like the kid in the classroom, in the back of the classroom, who's just hoping that the teacher doesn't
Doesn't
call on him.
notice.
I may or may not have been that kid.
So if we circle back to it all, the start of this conversation, we asked a question. After all of this, what was it all for? What's changed? Paul, I'm going to start with you. Does this affect America's standing in the world?
What's standing?
Exactly.
I mean, at this point. I mean, I don't mean that as facetiously as it sounds. But I think the world doesn't know what to make of this country right now. And I think that's a very dangerous place for the world to be in and for all of us, frankly. And that sounds like it's a hyperbolic overstatement, but it isn't. And we don't know what tomorrow will bring with this country as the boundaries continue to be pushed.
I think it has shown America's military might like we haven't seen in several decades. They were decisive. They were capable of targeting, finding, eliminating, with Israel's help, of course, so much of the Iranian leadership, but also of the country's military assets. But at the same time, it's shown the tremendous shortcomings of the administration's plan, that it doesn't matter how much military might you have if you don't have a fundamental understanding of the people that you are fighting against, which I think this is part of what was lacking. It doesn't matter what you achieve. And what Iran has achieved is exerting control over a major economic artery like we've never seen before.
You're talking about Iran? So I thought you were talking about Afghanistan. Oh, no, sorry. I thought you were talking about Vietnam. Sorry.
Yeah,
but it's true. Come on, you know?
I think really something that stands out here is that this entire conflict has really illustrated a credibility gap that is only getting bigger when it comes to the claims of the Trump administration. So when, the U.S. went and bombed Iranian nuclear facilities last June, Donald Trump said it completely obliterated their nuclear program. But then months later, okay, now their nuclear program, they are so close to developing something, we have to go in and act now. How does that make sense? How is it that the Americans can come forward and provide so many specific details about this rescue operation when it comes to the American pilots that were lost in enemy territory, but they can't provide any details about this erroneous strike on a girls' school that killed more than 100 people, I think close to 200 people, including children, many children.
That's a really good point.
Where are the specifics about that? So many things in this moment don't make sense, and there doesn't appear to be any sort of effort by the Trump administration to make things make sense on some points. And yes, it is very clear that America did degrade Iran's, weapons and military capabilities, and they did sink all these ships, and they did do all these things. But because of that credibility gap in this moment, it is so difficult for people to look at this and really know what's going on.
We also don't know where we're going to be in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Is a kind of bottom line for the moment.
Yeah. So on that note, we've got more work to do today. We have to go get back to our regular jobs, our other jobs. This is part of our job, I think.
Hey, I've been up since 4, guys.
So we, at this point in this episode, we're not going to have a listener question for this week. I know everyone will be very disappointed.
Tiny Violet, says the guy complaining he had to wake up for this podcast. Before we wrap up, though, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Lise Lemure in Vancouver for sending us a really lovely email after last week's episode, reminding me that despite the fact that my mom's beautiful garden was still very much buried under snow, there are other more mild parts of our big, beautiful country. I always forget how mild Vancouver is. First time I went, quick story, I know we have to wrap up, was the Vancouver Olympics, and I remember just seeing green, and I was like, this is the winter we're showing the world? This is not a Canadian winter.
It's Vancouver, man.
But anyways, merci encore, Lynn, pour votre courriel et pour votre photo. C'est très gentil de vous. She spoke to me in French and English, our 2 official languages, so I thought I'd extend the same courtesy.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone for sending us your feedback. If you do want to get in touch with us, our email is washingtonpod, all one word, at cbc.ca. That's washingtonpod at cbc.ca.
Or leave a comment for us on Spotify.
And don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app.
Paul, Willy, we'll
Katie,
chat next
Willy,
week.
Katie,
we will.
Paul.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao.